confronted my late husband's affair partner at my door, and ended up punching him when he demanded I keep quiet about their relationship. 3 months ago, my husband passed away, and I felt a wave of relief rather than sadness. Our marriage had been a nightmare. He controlled every aspect of my life, including my finances, my freedom, and even my dignity. When I became pregnant, he insisted I quit my job, promising he'd take care of me, but in reality, I lost all independence. I couldn't even buy a simple item without his permission. Everything that was mine became his, while everything that was his stayed that way. Despite all this, I stayed with him because I had nowhere else to go, and my self-esteem was too low to imagine a way out. By the time I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me feel responsible for it, blaming my lack of interest in sex after a traumatic birth that left me needing stitches. Little by little, I started saving money from the small business I ran from home, determined to save enough to eventually leave him and get a lawyer. He wouldn't let me work outside the house because of his jealousy, so I had to be discreet. During this time, he began an affair with a close male friend of his. I knew what was going on, but I stayed silent, relieved that his attention was elsewhere. I didn't care about him anymore. In fact, I wanted him as far away from me as possible. His betrayal didn't hurt. It just disgusted me. I kept my head down and focused on my plans to escape. Then, unexpectedly, he died. Suddenly, the man who had caused me so much pain became a saint in everyone's eyes. Even people who knew about his affairs and manipulations started talking about what a great man he was, about how our relationship had been beautiful. His family praised him as a devoted husband and father who had given me everything. At the funeral, his affair partner hugged me, whispering that my husband loved me. Friends and family alike painted a picture of a wonderful man, and I had to stand there and pretend to grieve for him. The truth was, on the day he died, I cried, but not from sorrow. I cried out of relief. It would have taken me years to save enough money to escape his control. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, he'd threaten to make my life hell. Now, though, I have the house, financial security from my widow's benefits, and my children entirely in my care. I've started seeing a psychologist, not to cope with grief, but to begin healing from the abuse he inflicted. At the funeral, I wore the mask of a grieving widow for my child's sake and to protect myself from his family, who are as manipulative as he was. If I'd shown any anger, I'm certain they'd have done everything they could to take away what I now have. So I played the part, letting them believe I was a heartbroken widow who never knew anything, which ironically has allowed me to keep my freedom and what I deserve. Then, just as I was settling into my new life, my husband's affair partner showed up at my door, demanding that I stay silent about their relationship. He insisted that if anyone found out, it would ruin his memory and his legacy. It was infuriating. Here was the man who had openly betrayed me, still trying to control my narrative, even after my husband's death. I snapped. I told him to leave, but he wouldn't listen, lecturing me about respect and keeping up appearances. I lost it, and before I knew it, I punched him. For the first time, I stood up for myself in a way I never had before. He finally left, and I closed the door, feeling a strange mix of anger, relief, and empowerment. Now, I'm focused on moving forward. I'm finally free from the shadow of his control, and I'm reclaiming my life, quietly, but on my own terms. Update. It's been several weeks since I last posted, and I honestly forgot about it until a few days ago when my late husband's former lover— I've started calling him my ex-husband because I don't want to be tied to the idea that he's still my husband, even in death— showed up at my house. Apparently, he had seen my post circulating online, possibly on TikTok, even though I never posted it there. Someone must have shared it elsewhere without asking me first, which is beyond my control at this point. My son let him in without me hearing the doorbell, so I had no choice but to face him to avoid a scene in front of my kids. Once we were alone, he confronted me, saying he knew I was aware of his affair with my husband because of the post on TikTok. He tried to guilt me, saying that while my ex-husband wasn't perfect, he was a good friend to everyone, and that I should let go of the past for everyone's sake. He went on about how my ex was hardworking, that his family misses him terribly, and that we'd all be better off if I just keep quiet about everything. His attitude was intimidating, so much so that it reminded me of my ex-husband. It was the first time I'd felt genuinely fearful in a man's presence since my husband passed. I could tell he was terrified of me speaking up. Maybe he has a boyfriend now, and that's why he's so desperate to keep this secret. But standing there, with him in my home, trying to silence me the same way my husband used to, was deeply triggering. This man knew what kind of abusive relationship I endured with my ex-husband and still chose to be involved with him. He was the same man my husband had me cook meals for, then slept with, treating me like a maid. And here he was, in my home, demanding I respect my ex's memory and stay silent. At that moment, all the years of being silenced, all the pent-up frustration came rushing back. I wanted to slap him, but instead, I punched him. It was impulsive, but in that split second, it felt like I was finally standing up to my husband as well. I don't regret it. It felt cathartic. I yelled at him to leave and told him that if he ever tried to control me like this again, I wouldn't hesitate to tell everyone about the affair. He left, and I haven't heard from him since. I had initially planned to let go of the past quietly, but I am done with people trying to silence me and dictate my life. I spent too long living under someone else's control. In a way, that moment gave me the closure I'd never had with my husband. I hadn't been able to confront him in life, but finally standing up to this man gave me a taste of that long overdue freedom. For now, I don't plan to tell anyone about the affair, but if he tries to intimidate me again, I won't hesitate to share everything publicly. As for my life now, I've been considering long-term plans for financial independence. Given the current housing market, selling our home would be challenging, but I'm focusing on building a future for myself and my kids. I'm hoping to secure a better job soon, and maybe one day rent out this house to generate income. Ultimately, I dream of buying a small piece of land, even if it's far from here, just to have something that's truly ours. My children, thankfully, don't seem to miss their father much, which I understand. I recently started taking them to see a child psychologist, and they're doing well in their sessions. I'm also in therapy, and I've started cutting off toxic family connections, like my ex-mother-in-law and even some relatives from my own side. I make excuses to avoid them, saying we're busy or not home, but for now, I still allow my ex-mother-in-law to visit occasionally. Life feels lighter, and I can tell my kids are happier seeing me more at peace. I don't know if anyone is truly interested in my story, but thank you to those who have reached out with messages of support. Although some don't fully understand the complexities of my culture or the challenges of financial independence here, I am grateful for all the encouragement.
Story 2. Married my girlfriend who swore she'd cut ties with her ex, only to find out she's been secretly talking to him, and now she's asking for an open relationship after 8 years together. I recently married my longtime girlfriend, Jenny. There's a bit of a backstory here. While we were together that whole time, the first 5 years of our relationship weren't exclusive. We didn't live together, and for about 2 years, we were living 1,200 miles apart, although we made an effort to visit each other regularly. When we first met, both of us were married, but in open relationships. My wife, Jenny's husband, and I all had jobs that involved long periods of travel, sometimes even years with minimal opportunities to return home, as we were security contractors. Jenny works as an ER nurse. A few months before Jenny and I met, her husband returned home for a 6-month break, and during that time, she started seeing a local police officer named Jack. Their relationship quickly moved into some intense S&M and BDSM, which she grew very fond of. However, things went downhill fast. What started as a consensual dynamic became abusive, leading to a lot of emotional turmoil and ultimately ruining her marriage. Her husband gave her an ultimatum, but she continued seeing Jack, and her marriage dissolved. At the time, I didn't know much about her relationship with Jack, though I had noticed Jenny becoming increasingly erratic. I wasn't aware of the abusive aspects until Jenny's husband told me. This prompted me to end things with her. About a month later, Jenny reached out, saying she had ended things with Jack and recognized how unhealthy it had been. She said she had blocked him, and if I was interested, she would like to start seeing me again. I checked in with her ex-husband, who confirmed she had broken it off. So we started seeing each other casually. Initially, it was still more of a friends with benefits situation. Over time, though, we grew closer, and eventually, we got married. However, about 4 years ago, she mentioned that Jack had reached out to her through Instagram after seeing some photos she'd posted. She told me they had a good conversation, he apologized for the past, and they found closure. While I understood her need for closure, I was surprised and asked how he'd managed to contact her if she had blocked him. She explained that she'd only blocked his number and hadn't thought to block him on Instagram. I didn't love that explanation, but I let it go, thinking it was behind us. Then, a couple of years ago, I learned from one of her friends that during a medical emergency, it was actually Jack, not the friend she'd mentioned to me, who had taken her to the ER and stayed with her. When I confronted her about it, Jenny said she didn't specify who had helped her because it hadn't seemed relevant at the time. This whole situation has remained a sore spot for me because of how it undermines my trust. Fast forward to now. Shortly after we got married, Jenny mentioned that Jack had moved to Florida, which I took as a relief and figured was finally a clean break. But recently, I found out he's not only still living in our city, but that they've been in contact, something she completely hid from me. I only found out by accident, through a message notification that popped up on her phone. To add to all this, Jenny recently brought up wanting an open relationship again. This blindsided me because after getting married, I thought we were both ready for a committed, monogamous partnership. Given everything that's come up with Jack, I can't shake the feeling that this open relationship request might have something to do with him. I feel like I'm constantly having to question her intentions, and now I'm left wondering if this relationship can ever be what I thought it was. Update. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. The validation and feedback helped me clarify my thoughts and gave me the courage to approach this difficult conversation. Also, I want to acknowledge the humor, compassion, and some downright clever responses that made me realize no matter how foolish I may feel, someone else will manage to outdo me in a more epic way. To cut to the chase, I had the conversation with Jenny and told her I'm filing for divorce. It was as rough as expected. She and Jack have not been physically involved, but I finally got to the root of why she's been in contact with him. I'm feeling clearer-headed and more purposeful than I have in a long time, though I'm exhausted. I'll share more details now that I've had time to process everything. What she told me. In a nutshell, Jenny is drawn to the lifestyle she had with Joe and later with me. She enjoys the excitement, freedom, and occasional absence of a partner who's away long-term. Her marriage with Joe ended because he returned home and tried to play house, shifting her reality from near-complete independence to something more conventional. Similarly, when I stopped traveling and settled into a more traditional relationship with her, it disrupted that lifestyle, just as it had with Joe. Reflecting on it now, I can see the pattern. She was with Joe because he was adventurous, always on the move, and provided financial stability, kids, and freedom, all without being around enough to enforce any restrictions. She didn't want a typical marriage then, and she doesn't want one now. She's essentially seeking a repeat of the arrangement she had with Joe, where the excitement and independence were built in. When he was home for an extended time, she rebelled. When I settled down with her, she did the same thing. Jenny admitted she enjoyed the stability I brought to her life, but she also craved the thrill that was missing. When I was away, she could freely indulge in her desire for excitement without confrontation, but having me home full-time took that element away. So she reached out to Jack again. In her mind, it was a way to keep the thrill alive without losing the stability I provided. She's still drawn to the intensity and extreme nature of their relationship. She finds something with Jack that she doesn't get with me. When she's with him, she can explore a side of herself that I'm unwilling to participate in, and sneaking around might have made it feel even more exhilarating. The Jack factor. Jack provides something I can't and don't want to give her. Joe and I are similar in our approach to the BDSM elements she enjoys, but we both have limits. Once it escalates to heavy impact play, cutting, or especially CNC, consensual non-consent, it crosses a line I'm not comfortable with. Jenny openly admitted that Jack fulfills this side of her sexuality in ways I never could. So, to be fair, Jack is better for her in that regard, even though the boundary-pushing aspects of their relationship cross into things I don't want anywhere near my home or family life. On managing chronic pain and alcohol. Some people picked up on my short, blunt response in the original post, and I realized it was rough around the edges. Yes, I struggle with chronic pain, but I have tried various treatments to avoid going down a path of addiction. I tried medical marijuana, but it was a disaster. While it made me feel more alert, it also increased my hypervigilance, making me paranoid and physically uncoordinated. I've since leaned into cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and other approaches to keep the hypervigilance manageable. Local anesthetics aren't very effective for me, so managing pain without opioids has been a challenge. I have zero interest in getting hooked on painkillers and turning into someone my kids can't rely on. These days, my routine consists of over-the-counter options like ibuprofen, lidocaine patches, biofreeze, weekly massages, and yes, drinking to wind down and sleep more often than I'd like. I've gotten plenty of suggestions on how to manage pain and sleep without alcohol, and if anyone has new ideas, I'm more than open to hearing them. Final thoughts. In the end, Jenny wants a lifestyle that I'm no longer willing to provide. She has been honest, if late, about what she's after, an arrangement that brings stability, while allowing her the freedom to indulge her thrill-seeking side. I get it now. I'm not angry, just sad that our paths have diverged so completely. For my own sanity and peace of mind, I'm ready to move on. Thank you again for all the advice. It helped me reach a place of clarity in what was an incredibly messy situation. Commentary time. These two stories powerfully illustrate journeys of self-realization, resilience, and the fight to reclaim personal freedom in the face of betrayal and manipulation. Story 1. The Wife's Secret Ties and Hidden Desires. In this story, OP's journey reveals the hidden complexities of a relationship shaped by open arrangements, personal boundaries, and unaddressed needs. Marrying Jenny, OP believed they had moved into a new chapter of committed monogamy, only to find out she still maintained ties with her ex, Jack, a figure from her past, who offered something OP could not. Jenny's request for an open relationship brought out underlying desires she hadn't let go of, ultimately pushing OP to confront their incompatibilities. By the end, OP's choice to divorce Jenny shows his strength in upholding his values, recognizing that relationships built on hidden agendas rarely lead to true happiness. Story 2. Widow finds strength after years of manipulation. The widow story highlights the immense courage required to break free from a manipulative marriage. After her husband's death, OP found herself bombarded with expectations to mourn a man who had made her life miserable. The courage she showed in standing up to his former lover, who continued trying to control her narrative, reflects a pivotal moment of empowerment. Finally, confronting her husband's affair partner allowed OP to release years of pent-up frustration, marking a significant step in her journey of healing. Her plans for financial independence and therapy for her and her children show a commitment to building a life free from the shadow of her past. Both stories underscore the importance of honesty, self-respect, and boundaries in any relationship. Whether breaking free from a controlling marriage or recognizing irreconcilable differences in a long-term relationship, both OPs demonstrate the strength to prioritize their own well-being over staying trapped in unhealthy dynamics. If you enjoy these incredible stories, from shocking betrayals to long overdue revenge, and want to hear more content like this, be sure to like the video and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts, reactions, or even your own experiences. I'd love to hear from you. Your comments and likes really help support the channel, and each one brings us closer to building an amazing community together. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. By subscribing, you'll get access to the latest uploads the moment they're out, keeping you updated with all the best tales and insights. Thanks for watching, and get ready for more unforgettable stories coming your way.